the economy is Mr. Congressman Patrick Henry of North Carolina. So first of all, I guess congratulations. You got a promotion. Tell us what you're going to be doing with this new task force.
Thank you, David. Look, the work of House Republicans right now is to build the case not just against what the current administration is doing for our economic recovery and getting people back to full employment, but what is the vision for American prosperity for the next 5 to 10 years? What's our agenda of how we have a prosperous economy, not for a short run, not for an election cycle, but for the next generation? That is the view, and that's the work that we're putting in right now. What does economic policy look like in our competition globally? What do we need to do to get people back to work and feeling safe and secure in the workforce? How do we support childcare so people can get back to work? How do we reform education so we have teachers back in the classroom so parents can go back to work? Those are the things that we're focused on with this economic task force. I'm really proud to be a part of driving innovation and a deeper conversation on policy.
So, Congressman, as you know so well, one of the big concerns is participation rate and the notion that there may be some people who went onto the sidelines of the pandemic and don't seem to be coming back. Do you have any sense of how big a problem that is and why it might be happening?
Well, it's a huge problem. I see this not just in my district in Western North Carolina, but I hear these stories all across America. We have a massive number of jobs, and we have economic data that shows we have 10 million Americans sitting on the sidelines, but 9 million unfilled jobs. That's the latest data we have. It shows that there is something else afoot. And from what I understand and what my view is, that we have a multi-layered effect. We have overly generous unemployment benefits that are keeping people on the sidelines, very nicely, prosperously on the sidelines. We have the concern about the virus and people's safety and going back into the workforce. But we also have, which I think is as big as these too generous unemployment benefits, is a lack of childcare and a lack of childcare resources. We saw this with school districts that refused to open, even though the science said that young children were not susceptible to the virus at the same rate as adults were. We saw this with the fights that many unions, teachers unions have put forward across the country to keep schools closed. We need to get things back open. And I think that multi-layered effect of child care, reducing these unemployment benefits, and having greater confidence about the virus will get people back to work in the fall.
Well, so when you talk about child care, that takes me sort of to that second part, if I can call it that, of the infrastructure proposal from President Biden, what he calls the family part of infrastructure. Does that make you more inclined to go along with what he's asking for in terms of child care?
Well, child care is not infrastructure. Infrastructure is roads, bridges, capital investment. Paying people is not a capital investment, at least not to any accountant I've ever interacted with. So we can deal with these societal challenges, but we don't need to deem everything as infrastructure. That's just silly. My constituents think it's ridiculous to call all these things infrastructure, healthcare and child care as infrastructure. No, we need roads and bridges. We need rail. We need airports. We need ports. We need a robust infrastructure that needs to be continually updated. And that's why I think we can come to a reasonable conclusion on infrastructure. That's what I'm for. And my hope is that the president will buy into this, not just get into the question of environmental policy and child care as a way to say no to roads and bridges.
Fair enough. And the president has said at least he wants to support that bipartisan proposal that came his way. But I guess what I'm asking, whether you call it infrastructure or call it something else altogether, call it whatever you like, are you inclined to say at some point in the not too far distant future, we should be appropriating some money for child care to address the jobs issue that you're really focused on?
Yes. And I think that is a reasonable outcome to this, that we support better child care policies as a nation. The last president dealt with this for federal employees to make sure you had family medical leave that was similar to what the private sector is offering. And I think that's a positive thing. I think we need to update these policies, and I think we need to have resources that go along to getting people back into the workforce and making sure that children have the best care and the best education possible. I think that is certainly a part of our economic recovery and really good for the long term of our nation. But that is a separate and distinct conversation than laying concrete and steel.
Congressman, do you have any sense, because we hear from economists, this may be an issue of people retiring. Is part of the issue here with people sitting on the sidelines, as it were, they're retiring, they're aging out?
I think that is, and I'm reading about this as well as you are, but that is an additional thing that we're not sure about. Do you have workers who would be content working if they knew they could be safe and healthy doing it, but are staying at home instead and just taking early retirement? I think we have something happening generationally that we don't fully understand. But again, this is an uncertain environment, an unprecedented environment of the nature of the economic shutdown because of a health crisis. I think that has been an unprecedented response by the government and by our society that we're now trying to come out of and trying to understand of how to fit. And we're doing it imperfectly, but I think we're doing it fairly well.
And one of the things that the pandemic certainly accelerated, if didn't trigger, was really a change in the way we live our lives and do our work, a real move into digital very quickly. What about skills mismatch? Because that's another thing we talk about often, that even if you have a number of job openings and people who would like jobs, they don't necessarily have the skills we need for a new economy.
That's true, and this is something where the states are adapting at a much faster rate than the federal government, and that's why we have to update all of our educational and training programs and how they deliver at the local level. We have a lot of federal overlap between programs that is trying to be harmonized here. We've tried to offer policies and proposals to fix those issues. Our community college system is doing a great task right now of getting people the training and education they need for the work that they want. I think that's a vital part of our economic investment. And everyone that can, and we have a ready way to pay for community college already, as well as higher education. But community colleges in particular have a very solid funding regime, and everyone who wants education or training can get it at an affordable price or with assistance today. And I think that is a vital part of us getting our economy going in the direction we need for the long term.
Okay, Congressman, thank you so much for being with us. And once again, congratulations, I think, on your being head of that new task force. That's Representative Patrick McHenry. He's Republican of North Carolina. Coming up, we're going to talk with Rob Kaplan, president of the Dallas Fed. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio.